following you on social media. I love all the bees, which is quite poignant. I'm glad I can see bees right now to remind me of why I'm here. How many of you saw the Bee City presentation this week? Any of you? No? Bee City is a wonderful organization that protects pollinator and pollinator habitat. They educate municipalities on how to impose bylaws or restrictions that protect the lives of pollinators, and Textile Waste Diversion is very proud to be their corporate partner. And you can actually host a bin or do a fundraiser with textiles to provide them sustainable fundraising. So even the way they fundraise is sustainable. So they're remarkable, and I was glad to see that you invited them to this week, and I'm glad that they were able to attend. So I am Vice President of Development for Textile Waste Diversion, as she mentioned, but I'm also co-founder of an organization called, or company actually, called Black Ram Media Group. And we represent textile waste diversion, but we also represent other organizations in the sector. And our main job for them is to educate the public on the importance of diversity in the industry, which in Stratford is very poignant for us, because most of my clients have lost all of their bins in Stratford. So this area had quite a diverse and robust collection model that was happening, and the city has decided to come in and put in regulations and do their own little program, and unfortunately a lot of companies were kind of pushed out in the process of that development. So I'm going to talk a little bit about that today, because I'm not going to talk about manufacturing. Let me tell you why. The manufacturing sector, the big buzzword is sustainability right now. They've got this. We give them a lot of pressure, but the brands have never worked harder towards sustainability as they have been. So pretty soon we will all be wearing, pineapple leather, I'm sure. They'll have us all of that pretty soon. So I'm going to leave the manufacturers to talk about the manufacturing. I'm going to leave the retail experts to talk about our consumption patterns and fast fashion, because that will get me talking all day, and I'm sure you don't want that lecture. So instead, we're going to start to talk about waste, but we're going to move away from that very quickly, because I want to empower you with knowledge that you can handle and that you can do that will make the biggest impact in terms of sustainability. So we've got the corporate end covered, but let's talk a little bit about that. For me, it's a bit of a touchy subject, because I'm the one who first predicted that municipalities would get involved in textile reclamation. As a matter of fact, I was the first to open the doors to this industry and to educate government delegations on textile waste. This was primarily quite a clandestine industry before I got involved, and it's been my soapbox all of this time. I was the first that was selected with Textile Waste Diversion to implement a textile diversion program for a municipality. That was bins, and it was also curbside collection. And when I designed this, my attitude was, well, 85% of all textiles are going to landfill, even though we have all these companies and charities that are already collecting. So what I don't want to do is touch what they're doing. Let them collect what they're doing. They're doing a good job. They're raising funds for great charities, great organizations. I want to help the municipalities go after the 85% nobody's touching. So when I implemented the program, I was very careful to not disenfranchise anybody that was already participating in the industry. No one had to remove their bins. No one had to stop what they were doing. And as a matter of fact, one of the programs that I offered was a on-demand pickup. And we heard that a local charity was starting to feel the pinch, that because of what we were doing, they were losing funding. I immediately convinced my municipal partners, can we please stop offering this service? We don't really need to take food from a baby. So let's let that charity continue doing what it's doing. And as a matter of fact, when we started to get phone calls asking for the service, we redirected them to that charity. Because as much as I would love complete market share, we wouldn't, right? I would dream of a monopoly, that would be great. But I understand what happens with Goliaths in the industry. And I understand that a sector needs diversification, it needs competition in order to drive innovation, because otherwise things stagnate. So what I've seen happen is my prediction come true. Municipalities are very engaged in curbside collection and all these cute little pilot projects that they're doing. But many, many times what they do is instead of adding to the good work that's already being done, they're wiping out the entire industry. And I'm getting phone call after phone call from little charities that maybe don't have the crony connections the big flashy charities have, that are being completely pushed out in favor of maybe one or two that for whatever reason get selected and not anybody else. So sure, I would love to see more municipalities get engaged, but to actually divert textiles. When you're wiping out 300 bins from 6 different companies and replacing them with 2 bins that belong to one organization, where's the rest of the clothes going? And then what happens to the innovation? What happens to the competition? Who's keeping each other honest? These are all the issues that I'm beginning to see, that the very thing that I fought for 6 years has become something I never intended it to become. I had this whole speech, I haven't even touched it. So let's talk about why I came, because now you know what you need to know and you can start doing your research on your end. So now we'll give you the promise of the sustainable conversation, which is another conversation nobody wants to have with you. Nobody will tell you what I'm about to tell you. You have no idea what I'm about to unleash for myself by doing this, but I'm going to. And I'll tell you why in a moment. When you go to the grocery store to buy cleaning products and laundry products, you see a massive shelf full of all these brands, right? They all look different. So many green ones. We're winning, right? All these green products. Some of you are smirking, so I know some of you know where I'm about to go with this. The United Nations did a study, and they found that there was a little over 1,000 chemicals that were the most dangerous and most potent chemicals that were being used in products that everyday consumers were using. They're carcinogenic, and they disrupt your endocrine system. How many of us have been touched by cancer with a loved one, or any other autoimmune disease, right? So the United Nations put out a plea and said, hey, you guys should ban this. And the European Union did. They banned all those chemicals and they kicked all those manufacturers out. But now they had to go somewhere. So who in the world is willing to spend $8 on a toilet cleaner, $5 on floor cleaner, $6 on window washing cleaner, and every other kind of cleaner? We've got laundry detergents plus perfume to add to your laundry detergents, right? The sprays and all the stuff you put in your dryer. So many things available to us. And why? Because no one in the world will buy it other than North Americans, because who else can afford it? So these companies, this great diversity of brands, most of them, or many of them, are actually owned by the same huge, big Goliaths. So you think you have all this diversity, but in fact you don't. Labeling laws in Canada say that, well, you know, we want you to test every chemical individually, but we're not gonna hold you to testing what happens when you mix them in the laundry. So anyone with a basic science degree is cringing. There's legislation that actually states that many of these chemicals have to be used in your textiles. Flame retardant stuff, because in the 70s, the Darwin effect was still going where people were smoking in bed. And now they're dipping your pillows in these chemicals that release carcinogens when you sweat because they're heat activated. All this great stuff they're putting in your laundry products that says, this won't stain your clothes and you won't get wrinkles. Those are all chemicals that are designed to not rinse out of your clothes, which means when they touch your body, they are being absorbed through your skin, which is your largest and most absorbent organ. These are the things that nobody tells you. Actually, the United Nations and the European Union co-founded a study to see how Canada can absorb these legislation, these bans. How can we change our legislation to easily push this through? It's been sitting on a shelf collecting dust since 2007. Why doesn't anybody want you to know? It's because it doesn't affect anybody's bottom line, including mine. My company will not benefit if you start using cold water washes. But before I'm a lobbyist or a textile reclamation expert or anything else anybody wants to call me, and there's quite a few things I'm called often, what I am is a daughter, and both my parents have cancer, and I'm angry. And I've been angry since I took my mother to her chemo appointment, and the factory, it looked like a factory. It was like a factory farm operation of cancer treatment because of the volume of people that need to be treated every single day. In Canada, we have about 20 some odd chemicals banned. The States, it's more like 8. And in Europe, it's over 1,000. Why? Why, when we've had that study since 2007? So there is a lot to celebrate. There's a lot of amazing innovation happening, absolutely. We're actually doing research where we're trying to learn how to create edible culinary mushrooms made out of your old gene scraps. And we're gonna bring that technology to northern communities that don't have a commodity that they can export because they can't get their waste out. So we're gonna turn that into food. There is technology where your textiles can have tumor sensors embedded in them, solar panels in your curtains. There's amazing technology. There's technology where mushrooms are being used to take dyes out of fabric that are toxic. Like I said, the manufacturing sector is doing amazing things. As much as we'd love to pick on them, they're doing amazing things. And fast fashion is a problem, but it's not the only problem. You'll be hearing a lot of talk about the export industry in Canada because I'm going to make that talk happen. There is a coalition, as we speak, being formed of various charities, for-profit companies, local thrift stores, collectors, sorters, and exporters that are all coming together and pooling their resources so they can educate you on the things that nobody else is. On what's really happening in Canada with its waste, how we solve that crisis. But here's what you have to know more than anything. If you can picture a big pie chart, and that pie is all the environmental damage that is done from the moment your garment is created to the moment you dispose of it. That's all the environmental damage done. If we actually were in the perfect world where we're all wearing that, pineapple leather, and that we've hit the zero waste crisis, how much of that pie do you think will actually be removed? Can anybody guess for me? No one guess? Yeah, so if this is the whole pie, everything that you do to damage the environment from the time a garment is made till the time you dispose of it, and that represents the pie. If we got to zero waste and complete sustainability in manufacturing, so the beginning and the end portion was completely sustainable, how much of that pie do you think damage would be removed?
A quarter.
A quarter?
Half.
Half? Closer to 30%. 70% of all the damage we're seeing in the environment is because of how you do laundry. 70. And yet they all have us picking on H&M. They all have us picking on George, not that they can't do better. But why are we picking on the 30% of the problem and no one's talking about the 70% of the problem? Who's benefiting from that? That's the rabbit hole I want you all to start digging in. So what can you do? What are these simple changes that fixes 70% of our problem? And it's so simple, when I tell you, you'll be infuriated. You could have got it in an email. Cold water washes. Put your laundry through a second spin cycle because that will reduce the amount of time you need to put it in the dryer. Stop using all those perfumes and fancy stain-resistant whatevers in your laundry, and look up DIY sustainable laundry or non-toxic laundry recipes. It's so easy, it's ridiculous. Don't assume that because something says it's green that it really is green. Learn about the labeling laws in Canada and how they snow you. Very important. Dryer balls, don't just use 1 or 2, put 4. You will see a reduction in your drying time. Vinegar, I know it sounds gross, but vinegar in your dryer is an amazing anti-static. And once it dries, you don't smell it. Clothesline, can we talk about that? Okay, listen, let's talk about that. If you hang something in the sun, it will brighten. Like that sun bleach, that's a thing. Like, that's why they call it that. You can hang your laundry and it will brighten it and it will whiten it. And there are so many bylaws that say, you're nodding, there are bylaws that say that some places you can't dry your laundry outside because, ew, they don't like the way it looks. If you knew what was happening with your dryer what it was pumping in the air. And if you have it ventilated outdoors, that's bad enough for the outdoors, but God forbid you have a dryer that ventilates in your house, run away screaming. The stuff that's coming out of your dryer sheets, if you knew, you would never, ever use them again. And not to mention the hydro that it costs, the power that you run to use your dryer. Who can afford it in Ontario anyway? So hang your stuff outside. And if you have that bylaw, I'm gonna cough. Sorry. If you have that bylaw, contact your bylaw department and tell them that frankly it's stupid. And that you would rather live and not breathe poisoned air than worry about how it looks that something is hanging. Because you know what? In Europe, everybody hangs their clothes and tourists take pictures of it because they think it looks cute. That's one of my favorite memories growing up. I grew up in Little Italy where my little Italian grandmother hung the laundry. And that smell, you'll never replace that smell. Never mind that garbage they make you put in there. Any other questions? Might as well jump right to the question. I'm good.
What do you think about baking soda and hydrogen peroxide?
Was a miracle created by the gods.
That's like I use for like ultra stains that this winter, I don't have a washer, I don't have a dryer. I wash in the bathtub or in the sink and hang stuff. Somewhat out of necessity, but I do occasionally go to the laundromat. But I put vinegar in the rinse water, I put vinegar on a towel, a thin washcloth.
Yep.
And then, so it's good to use vinegar paste and hydrogen peroxide.
Okay, hang on. You can never mix vinegar and hydrogen peroxide?
Sorry,
Yeah.
baking soda and hydrogen peroxide.
Absolutely
Okay.
you can.
Okay,
Absolutely.
that's what I use for stain.
Well, and if you have something really gross or someone's been sick in the house, you know, do a soak cycle with a bottle of hydrogen peroxide and whatever it is will be sparkling. Way cleaner than the stuff that's poisoning you, I'll tell you that much. And vinegar in place of baking soda, so never mix the two or I'm gonna get in trouble. But vinegar and baking soda also has an amazing impact. And even things like lemon essential oil is quite a brightener. You can use that in your laundry as well. And that's a pretty safe thing.
Okay.
If you don't use dryer sheets, is it still like poisonous in the air or not?
No, way, way better. If you're not using dryer sheets, the dryer is the hydro, you know what I mean, and the energy, right, that expels, but the dryer sheets is what's really, really trouble. And here, when they say, oh, we don't have X ingredient in here, they don't tell you what they replaced it with, right? So just keep that in mind. Yeah?
Can you talk about the microfibers that are released when you wash fleece?
Yeah, and some other fibers as well. So what happens is, and sometimes some of this chemical stuff that I'm telling you about will make them pill faster. Do you notice sometimes your towels, after a while, it moves the water around, but it doesn't really suck it up? That's some of these chemicals. And over time, they degrade your textiles. Although, yeah, we're using substandard material in some fast fashion, a lot of the reason why our clothes are fading is actually the inundation with all these chemicals. So what happens is, as it moves around in the water, these little microfibers get released, which doesn't sound like a big deal because they're small and it's just your shirt, but when you add your shirt and everybody else's shirt and everybody else's laundry, it actually clogs up the water system. We're finding animals that are being dissected that have this stuff in their bellies. And the worst part of it is that we're eating the meat. They're finding it in the meat and we're consuming it. And then again, why are we all sick? Anybody else?
So I didn't catch your point about what the negatives are with the city of Stratford partnering with Canadian Diabetes.
There's no negatives with municipalities getting involved in any particular organization. Everybody's trying to do a good job. The problem is when everyone else is wiped out and the competition is removed from an environment.
So do you feel that that's going to happen if Stratford's having the door-to-door twice a year and the bin at the landfill?
No,
Or
no.
are you kind of saying wait and see?
No, door to door is awesome. Door to door is very low yielding in our experience. I've been doing curbside collection even before the cities were. I wasn't waiting for permission, I just used to do it. And, but it's very low yielding. It's nice because it generates conversation and it's convenient for people that are elderly or disabled that can't get to a bin. So when you can offer that service, you should, and it's a beautiful thing. 2 bins at a landfill is a joke, frankly. And when I only see one organization with bins in town, I find that rather concerning. So the clients that I represent, including textile waste diversion, like textile waste diversion alone has lost 8 bins in Stratford. You know, we're trying to grow this program for Bee City Canada because we want to save pollinators. Why are they not as worthy of fundraising as any other charity is the question.
So just so that I'm clear, your concern is when other charities' bins are removed as a result of the municipal program?
Yes, when I did the municipal programs, and now I'm running 2 municipal programs, I didn't ask for anybody's bins to be removed, including pirates. I let them keep the pirate bins because, in effect, here's another truth bomb. Doesn't matter who you donate to, the clothes all go to the same few facilities. And especially now, since we've had changes in the labor laws and other costs involved, most of them are shutting down anyways and moving overseas. So we've already lost hundreds of jobs in the sector. It started with the minimum wage increase, but what really nailed it, because they were trying and they were gonna make it. What nailed it was when all those companies lost all their bins and only 1, 2, 3 of them are the ones actually collecting any major volume. So now nobody has clothes to sort, is the problem.
Do you know if the city of Stratford required that the other charity bins were removed when they made the partnership with diabetes?
I don't know because I don't know the particulars of that contract. I just know that when I work with municipalities, I don't ask for that. Any other questions?
How profitable is it for the companies that come in and take these texts?
Not as profitable as you would think. It's expensive. The labor, for me, it's the trucks. The trucks and the gas kill me every single year. So it's the overhead, the WSIB, insurance, you know, all of those things really add up when you're starting to collect. And fuel alone really is probably my biggest expense is fuel, and not to mention the bins.
And if you were gonna cut your expenses, you'd probably do something shady, right?
What do you mean?
Well, I mean, if you wanted to sell your services and you wanted to cut your expenses, like maybe you dump them somewhere or sell them.
Actually, I'd love that you asked that. No, because here's the thing, if I dump it, I have to pay to dump it.
Yeah, but I mean, what I'm trying to say is.
I know what you're trying to say, and I wish I could agree because it would make my argument a lot easier. But the reality is that there's a 98% diversion rate in Canada with everything that's collected. So even your cat toy, your sewing scraps get sold to cat toy manufacturers. So because there's an end market for every little thing, there's no incentive for anybody to dump, including the worst participants in this industry, like the pirates. The pirates have the same diversion rate as the squeakiest brands, you know, that are in the industry. So dumping isn't really the thing because it doesn't benefit anybody to dump, and I don't mean that environmentally, I'm talking fiscally. Any other questions? Yeah.
Is there any store-bought laundry detergent brand you would recommend? Because let's be honest, I'm not making my own laundry detergent anytime soon.
I actually can't recommend a brand just because of the position I'm in. I can't really recommend one, but they are out there if you do digging. There's a lot of multi-level marketing companies, believe it or not, that actually have exceptional green products. So you might want to take a look at that route. I know everybody hates that word, but they have good stuff, some of them.
Can you talk about soap berries that they use in India? Do you know about the soap berries?
No.
Oh, okay. So as an alternative, they're called soap berries and they create a natural sapling.
Soap nuts?
Soap nuts, soap berries, those, yeah.
Nice. See, I need to know
Berries
that.
is a company in Collingwood that I've used for years. And, I mean, maybe we could get the general rate to bring it into the place, but it has, they use them in third world countries because they're readily available and they don't have endocrine disrupting perfumes in them.
Perfect.
And they naturally create soap, so it's a good alternative.
Ballpark carries the soap berries.
Ballpark does? Excellent.
There you
So
go.
they're available
Bulk
in
barn.
There you go, okay.
Bulk bar, no excuses now. Any other questions? Any other questions for me? Yeah, go ahead.
You mentioned using vinegar instead
Mhm.
of a dryer sheet. How do you do that?
You put it on like a washcloth. Some people will put some essential oil on it too, but I never smell essential oil. And you just throw it in the dryer. And then you, so literally that washcloth becomes your dryer sheet. And there's something in the vinegar that just keeps the static from building. It does a good job. And you won't smell it, I promise. And another one is vodka. Put vodka in a spray bottle, it's a good deodorizer. You see your hand there? To be a pirate? It's much easier to be a pirate. I miss the pirate days, I won't lie to you. Because you don't have to pay all the permits that regular companies pay. They don't pay WSIB, they don't do all that stuff, you know what I mean? And half the times the sign on their bin isn't even a real organization, so they don't even donate to that. Yeah, they just drop bins and collect the clothes. They sell them to the same place as everybody else does, right? In Canada, it's a very limited industry of where you can send these clothes. So it's not that giving it to one charity or one company it will end up somewhere different. It's just who do you want to get the middle funds from? So if you have like diabetes, if you're interested in supporting diabetes, then that's who you would give your donation to. But it's nice to give people the option of who they want to support. Any other questions?
I just wanted to say that, any textiles can be taken to the Stratford landfill, and there's no cost whatsoever to take that there. So if you have the option to, you have a vehicle and you can take your textiles to the landfill in Stratford on Darrow Street, you can take that now, anytime.
That's cute, but you know, one bin at one landfill doesn't
No, that is
replace
still-
a whole
if
industry.
someone doesn't have any other accessibility.
Right.
and-
Oh, diabetes has bins all around here. You
Yeah,
have
and
tons of
they choose
accessibility.
not to donate to a value village, huge corporate entity. It's just,
So who collects the bins at the landfill?
I have no idea.
might wanna look
I just
into-
read it online this week, but if that's an option and they're doing their part.
Yes, they are.